The deity known as Yahweh was initially a localized, volatile storm and war god, fundamentally distinct from the later universal creator. Early textual references and archaeological findings place his origins not in Canaan, but in the southern Levant, specifically associated with the regions of Midian, Edom, and Teman. The earliest known mention of the Tetragrammaton, YHW, appears in Egyptian inscriptions from the 14th century before the Common Era, linking him to the Shasu, nomadic tribes of the desert. This early Yahweh was a deity of the mountains and the wilderness, characterized by thunder, lightning, and military prowess, attributes typical of ancient Near Eastern storm deities like Baal or Hadad. This initial identity is crucial because it establishes Yahweh as a regional power, not a cosmic one, setting the stage for his dramatic theological ascent. Before the rise of monotheism, early Israelite religion was explicitly polytheistic, centered around a pantheon headed by the high god El. El was the creator deity, the father of the gods, and the ultimate source of authority. Yahweh functioned within this system, often depicted as one of El's 70 divine sons, or sometimes as a subordinate war god. Archaeological discoveries at sites like Kuntilet Adrud confirm this polytheistic reality, featuring inscriptions that invoke Yahweh and his Asherah. Asherah was the powerful Canaanite mother goddess, often depicted as Yahweh's consort or paredra, demonstrating that exclusive worship was not yet practiced. The early Israelites saw no contradiction in worshiping multiple deities, with Yahweh serving primarily as their national or tribal protector, while El maintained cosmic supremacy. The transition from polytheism to monolatry required a process of syncretism, where Yahweh absorbed the attributes of the supreme deity, El. This merger is evident in the biblical texts, where El's titles, such as El Shaddai and El Elyon, are seamlessly transferred to Yahweh. The foundational narrative of the Exodus served as the primary theological mechanism for this elevation. By associating Yahweh with the liberation of Israel from Egypt, the deity was established as uniquely powerful and intimately connected to the nation's identity and destiny. This narrative provided the necessary justification for elevating Yahweh above all other gods, transforming him from a regional storm deity into the singular patron of the Israelite tribes, though not yet the sole existing deity. The establishment of the monarchy under David and Solomon cemented Yahweh's status as the official state god of the kingdoms of Israel and Judah. The construction of the temple in Jerusalem centralized the cult, making it the exclusive legitimate site for Yahweh worship, a crucial step toward eliminating competing local shrines. This centralization was a political necessity, unifying disparate tribes under a single religious banner that legitimized the ruling dynasty. However, even with the temple's prominence, worship of other deities persisted, particularly in the northern kingdom of Israel, where Baal worship remained strong. In Judah, the royal cult promoted Yahweh, but popular religion continued to incorporate elements of the older polytheistic traditions, maintaining a complex religious landscape.
The 8th century before the Common Era brought the existential threat of the Neo-Assyrian Empire, which acted as a powerful catalyst for theological change. As Assyria conquered the northern kingdom of Israel and threatened Judah, the need for a singular, powerful national protector became acute. Competing deities, particularly those associated with fertility or foreign powers, were increasingly viewed as ineffective or treacherous. This crisis fostered the rise of monolatry, the belief that while other gods might exist, only Yahweh should be worshipped by Israel. Prophets began to interpret military defeats not as Yahweh's weakness, but as his righteous punishment for Israel's failure to maintain exclusive loyalty, thereby strengthening the demand for singular devotion. The Deuteronomistic movement, culminating in the reforms of King Josiah in the late 7th century before the Common Era, institutionalized monolatry. This reform mandated the destruction of all local shrines, known as bamot or high places, and demanded that all legitimate worship be confined solely to the Jerusalem temple. The Deuteronomistic historians rewrote Israel's history to emphasize a covenant demanding exclusive loyalty to Yahweh, promising prosperity for obedience and disaster for deviation. This was a radical political and religious purge, effectively eliminating the public practice of polytheism and the worship of Asherah. The Deuteronomistic Code provided the legal and theological framework necessary to enforce the idea that Yahweh was not just the best God, but the only God Israel was permitted to acknowledge. The Babylonian Exile in 586 before the Common Era presented the ultimate theological crisis. If Yahweh was the most powerful God, why did he allow his temple to be destroyed and his people exiled? The traditional national God model failed. The exiled priests and prophets responded by radically universalizing Yahweh. Instead of viewing the defeat as Yahweh's failure, they reinterpreted it as evidence of his absolute sovereignty over all nations, including Babylon. Yahweh was no longer merely the God of Israel, he was the cosmic ruler who used foreign empires as instruments of his divine will. This theological shift was essential for the survival of the faith, transforming Yahweh from a localized patron into a deity whose power transcended geographical and political boundaries. True monotheism, the explicit denial of the existence of any other deity, was fully articulated during the exile by the prophet known as 2nd Isaiah. This prophet declared Yahweh as the sole creator of the cosmos, stating unequivocally, "I am the first and I am the last. Besides me, there is no God." This doctrine established Yahweh as the source of all existence, creating ex nihilo, or out of nothing, a concept that fundamentally separated him from the older Near Eastern deities who often arose from primordial matter. This final theological step completed the evolution, transforming the ancient storm god into the singular, omnipotent, and omnipresent deity recognized in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The historical trajectory of Yahweh demonstrates that the concept of God is not static, but a dynamic, evolving socio-political construct. The transformation from a minor, localized storm deity to the universal monotheistic sovereign was driven by political centralization, imperio-brises, and the necessity of theological survival during exile. Each stage of Yahweh's evolution reflects the shifting power structures and cultural needs of the people who worshipped him. The attributes of omnipotence and omniscience were accreted over centuries, assimilated from older deities like El, and refined through prophetic interpretation. Understanding this historical development reveals that the deity is a product of human history and political maneuvering, rather than a singular, unchanging divine revelation.